like we don't normally get to have Linda on our one team trainings, and I feel a little bit like we're recording a podcast episode. Do you?
And don't be surprised if it turns into one.
That's right. We definitely will. I know you guys probably all know Linda, but we were super excited to be able to have her on today, and we thought that it would be fun for us to talk about some of our biggest takeaways and ahas from not mainly from Gary's CEO Summit, but then also from any of the keynote speakers, Linda, too. And I figured we could kind of just start with Gary's CEO Summit and then go from there. And but first of all, did you have a good birthday? You just had a birthday this week.
I had a fantastic birthday. Thank you very much. Yes, it is
Mexican or something else.
Huh? No, we actually, there's a place, well, you know, Nordstrom's. I don't know if you'll have like a cafe in your Nordstrom's, but they have the best cilantro chicken tacos that are like my favorite.
Never had them.
And they don't really inflame me, so I try to eat them every chance. So I made, since it was my choice, we went there. It's kind of girly, but Jimmy goes.
But you did have tacos though, which is
definitely, it definitely had tacos. Yeah. So I guess it does qualify technically as Mexican.
I was going to say that's not too far off, which is good. As Stephanie said, hopefully you shopped too.
Oh, of course, Steph, of course. I mean, good Lord, that was the whole purpose of being there.
That's right. Okay, perfect. Well, let's get started with what were some of our biggest takeaways from the CEO Summit. Gary started with his 5 truths that you cannot hack. Do you want to kick it off, Linda, and go first and share some of yours?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to tell everyone should commit to coming back and sharing their ahas, because what I found myself, if I was caught on an instant, I was blacked out. I couldn't remember a thing. My trainer was asking me about, what was the trainer guy? Sean? Lane.
Yeah.
Somebody. Anyway, my trainer loves him because I texted him during the process and he goes, "Oh my gosh, I love this guy. I follow him all the time.
Yeah.
I learn from him, all that kind of stuff." So we get in my training session and my mind just went blank. I'm like, but having to kind of prepare for this, I had to go back through my notes. I had to find them, all those things. So I would recommend everybody go promise to teach some of them to someone else, because I think but the number one thing I got, just was, I have to get this off my chest because I love it so much, was from the Ed Milet, when he said, when you have something going on and you think that's all there is, that's sad. I don't know if he used the word sad, but he used some word. Right. That was so big because, you know me, I'm always talking about how do I get a lot of people when they call me with I don't think I want to do this anymore. I don't know what I was supposed to do. And I've been telling you, I've been playing around with this idea of I was made for more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of what everybody needs to ask themselves or say to themselves, I was made for more, right? Because I think what happens is success gets in our way a little bit. I mean, we have something going on and we think that's all there is, or we don't ask ourselves, is there more, right? Or what else, or is there, or was I made for more? So that one was probably the biggest takeaway I took away from all of them. And you can kind of kick us off with Gary's if you want to go back to that, but I didn't want to lose.
Well, should we start with, let's just start with Ed then, because I mean, man, I've heard him before and I was kind of thinking, okay, this is going to be the same thing. But it wasn't. And he absolutely just crushed it. I loved that he said that. One of my favorite things that I thought that was great that he talked about, and I've talked to a couple people about this, is just the fact that I needed this reminder too, but that we sell happiness, like no matter what we're doing or what industry we are in, which for all of us happens to be real estate, but the one thing that we sell is happiness. And he said, the number one thing that people want today is to be happier. And he said, because they want to be happier, you have to talk about that as much as possible. And he shared about who owns the most real estate in the country, which is McDonald's. And then he said they're actually also the largest distributor of food in the country. McDonald's is. And so he said, and what do they sell? They were in the happiness business with the Happy Meal. So I just thought, like, man, we got to go back to everything that we do, like even in marketing and just work, like talking to our clients or the consumers, talking about happiness, because I also think that that's another reason, to go back to your first point, Linda, that some people are kind of burnout or they're down or they're whatever, in some way, shape, or form, they're missing some sort of happiness. You know what I mean? Like something's missing, something's off, I feel like.
So true. I think we see it. It's a universal thread. You see it everywhere. Right now, I feel like it's more of a trend now than it probably ever has been. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love that. And when I kind of reflected on that, I thought, okay, but I think what makes people happy is different for different people. But the example he gave was a clown, right? What does a clown have to do with selling hamburgers? But a clown, when people see a clown, they probably all smile and think of happiness, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
using that universal thing, even though we don't necessarily know what's happiness to each individual person, if we get to know them and get on a relational level, you could probably dig and find that a little bit more. That's exactly what I tell people do in the recruiting is find out what their value gaps are. What are they missing? What are they trying to find or feel? Because that would, in their mind, would give them happiness. But I think I love how he just kind of said the clown has nothing to do with hamburgers, but everybody thinks of happiness when they think of clowns.
And now you just made me think of when he said too that Steve Jobs named Apple because apples made him happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he loved
So
apples. And so that was why he named Apple. Stacy, or clowns could make you think of scary movies.
yeah, I started to say, unless you're someone who is scared to death of clowns, and I know those people are out there.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't want to, maybe they don't ever go to McDonald's. I don't know.
Yeah. The other thing that I had on my list to share from Ed, and I also feel like you and I talked about this before too, but it's just such a great reminder. Well, two things, but one is the momentum is a magnifier. And he said the difference between winners is that they just get a little bit of momentum. And I was just thinking like, man, if everybody listening and out there could figure out like how they just get a little bit of momentum. And then he also said sometimes, I don't know if he said this in this time or the other one, but if you're lacking momentum, like go get around other people because momentum is contagious. You remember that?
Yeah. Yes. And I think what we tend to do on momentum is, and I remember this from years ago, doing sales, that the best time to make another call is when you just got a yes. But what I would tend to want to do in the early days is go celebrate. Hallelujah, I got a yes. I'm going to have a margarita or something. But the truth is, what you should do is keep going and ride that momentum. And I think I had forgotten that is a great thing, because it's really hard to get yourself to do something when you feel like it's not working or you're bogged down in it. I had a recruiting appointment yesterday, and I just really tried to listen to this guy, and he feels like he's kind of so in the messy middle of where he is right now. And you could feel that he is like lost in it. And so I was thinking through this morning at 4 when I woke up thinking about it. I was thinking, okay, what he needs to believe is that if I make certain changes, I'll get that momentum back. He just didn't have any momentum left. And I think it's because sometimes we don't have momentum because we're sitting around in the muck of what we don't love or what's not our unique abilities or not things that we enjoy doing. And so I think it would be a great idea to figure out what is your process when you feel yourself in that messy middle or that muck, to give yourself some momentum. What could you do to maybe come up with a little plan of, like I always tell the story about if I got really down and thought, oh gosh, there's no more business. Everybody's got all the business. I can't hit my goals this year. I'd get in my car and drive around and look at rooftops. It's silly, crazy, but it worked for me, right? Sometimes just stepping away from the business completely and going to look at the ocean and don't even, think about the business inspires you to get going. But everybody's different to figure out what gives you momentum. That would be a huge thing for everyone to figure out is, when do I feel that I have that momentum? What just happened previous to that?
Yeah, love that. That's a huge takeaway, huge one. Okay, let's move to the 5 hacks. I'll tell what are the 5 truths that you cannot hack, actually, that Gary shared. I'll share the 5, and then Linda, we can kind of deep dive on which one stuck out to us the most. The first truth, so Gary basically started this by saying everything right now is figure out how to hack this, learn how to hack that, all the hacks. And so he said, here are 5 truths that you cannot hack no matter what. Number 1 is the closer that you are to the truth, the simpler things get. The closer you are to the truth, the simpler the things get. He kind of said on that one, only a few select can get to the top of the triangle and stay there. You've got a lot of middle of the roaders, and then you have even more people that are at the bottom of the triangle that are kind of like average. They stay in average. And so he said, how do you get that to be that small percentage at the top that really stay there and get there? Anything you thought on that one?
Yeah, honestly, this one, what I thought about is my own life on the times that it feels, more convoluted or whatever. It was a stage in my life when I wasn't clear of what the truths were. In other words, the clearer I got on truth, certain truths, they're just truths that are truths, right? I don't care.
Yeah.
And, occasionally you'll think somebody's, found a new truth. There are no new truths. So I
Yeah.
think the first thing we have to get clear on is our own truths. And I've actually I've heard Mo say this before when I interviewed her about, how does she make hard decisions? Well, she's very clear before she has to make those decisions on what certain truths are or values she's based
Value. I was going to
on.
say that. What do you think another word for truth could be? Values.
It so could be. And I just think when you can get clear about the truth, that's when things get simple. When I think about all the times when I like have a hard time or made the wrong decisions, it's because I didn't have clarity of the truths or the
Yeah.
values. And so therefore I either made a wrong decision or, I just didn't decide at all or whatever. So that's when I look at this one, that's exactly what I think of is a person has to get clear on the truths first. And I think the clearer you are on the truths, yes, life is going to get more simpler for everything you do. Any decision you make, any conflict you have, anything
Yep.
gets simpler.
Yeah. Love that. Yeah. That was a really good one. Number 2 in the 5 truths you cannot hack were to change your life, you have to change your identity.
Gosh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that because I think people want to, they don't want to start acting as whatever it is they're trying to accomplish.
Yep.
And that's how you get there faster is to figure out, I've heard this related to like people who want to be healthy, to say to yourself, what does a healthy person do?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Or how would a healthy person react in this situation? And so I think the main thing is to just take on that identity. This is what I got from this is take on the identity first, even though you haven't actually accomplished it yet, but start taking on that identity as fast as you possibly can.
That reminded me, was it Diana that used to go like try on a 10-carat diamond ring and then go try on those suits and like all that stuff?
Yeah, actually that came from our business psychotherapist that we all worked with named Dr. Fred Gross.
Okay.
And he made me do the same things because I had this real problem with anybody who was in a very nice house because I don't know, I just had the stigma about them. And what's interesting is he did a couple of things with me. He made me go drive a Mercedes, big mistake. I wound up owning 2 Mercedes after that. So be careful. Second thing was I had to go learn all the interior products that were used on a very nice house. And then what the final conclusion was, I actually had a house as nice as their house. So why was I feeling intimidated by those people?
That's true though. I wonder that's a really great thing. That's a really great point.
Yeah. So I think that is taking on the identity before you change it.
Yeah. And the other thing I thought about this too is if you think about, if any of you have ever studied like addiction or addicts, they say that when they truly want to change, like their whole identity changes. They can't hang out with the same people. They can't sometimes go to the same town. Like, everything has to change because their life has to change. And he kind of gave that example, but it's truly changing your identity. So I love that one. Number 3 was a huge one. And number 3 is diluted focus gets you diluted results.
Yeah.
And we talked about that a lot on the podcast too.
Yeah. This one hurts because, I can't remember what Marie Forleo's name for it is, a multifaceted entrepreneur or whatever, meaning she doesn't want to narrow it. She wants to be all of it. And I think we all can tend to want to do that.
Yeah.
And so, when I look at this, what I think is getting clear about, because something else, I think it was Ed Milet said, or somebody said, or Gary even, that says, if you want to really see what you care about, look at your calendar, right? So all this kind of ties together. of how do I get more focused on the things that are going to get me the results that I want, right? And if I'm trying to get too many things, that's impossible too, because, there is a time factor that we all have that we're up against of the 24 hours. And so we're going to be limited by that. But I think diluted focus is one I'm probably most guilty of.
Yeah, same. He said on that one, I wrote down, and maximizing the most that you have to earn the right at each step, like dominoes. And I talked about this on my coaching call with Terry this week, because we were just saying, okay, here's all the things that I needed to focus on. And I was feeling like everywhere, all over the place.
Mhm.
And we were talking about how Gary said, your first, like, you should have one big accomplishment, and that domino should then knock over the next domino, and then that should knock over the next. And at each domino falling over, a new opportunity could occur. But that's how you should know when it's to take the opportunity, because your previous domino knocked over that next domino to create the opportunity. And really, yeah, this one definitely, it does hurt, but then he said stacking them all on top of each other and growing bigger each time. But you have to focus on the main domino so that one can knock over your next one. So a lot of times I think when people are saying, what about my next opportunity, or what opportunity should I go to next? It's almost like focusing on the one thing, first, so that can knock over that next one.
Yeah.
Number 4 to me was my favorite. And number 4 truth that you cannot hack is the key to building a really big business is to get there first and then block out all of the others. And I loved this. He drew an example of, do you remember that he drew an example of a tree? And
Mhm.
one of these days I'm going to get one of those Elmo things so I can draw on these things.
Yeah.
But he drew an example of a tree, a really tall tree, and then he drew all these other little tiny trees around it. And he said the only reason that those tiny trees are, yes, Stacy, sorry, it is the key to building a really big business is to get there first and then block out all of the others.
Mhm.
And so his drawing of the tree was, he said it even happens in nature, because that one tree got there first and it grew really big, and then it blocked the sunlight so that all of the other trees could never grow as big. And then he said ultimately that what Gary said, if you lose your advantage, like for an example, in a recession, if you lost your advantage because your systems weren't there, or your foundation wasn't there, your business wasn't strong enough, then he said the tree drawing looks different, because like if a storm comes and knocks down all the branches, right, then there's equal opportunity and the sun can shine and those around you can actually grow bigger. And you have more now you have competition where before you didn't. And I loved this one. I just thought like, man, I think it was the visual that really made it click for me.
Mhm. Well, and I think of things, companies like Clinics and people that when you, there's a lot of different people in that or in those categories.
Yeah.
But the truth is you only think of one or two at the most,
Yep.
ever. And so but again, I think that takes, you not having diluted focus, right? Because you've got to put all in for that thing so that you can be the one that's known for it, right? And,
Yep.
so that one was probably the most confusing of all that he said, but that's what I thought of is, wow, Clinics did that, Campbell Soup did that. I mean, there's so many companies that have done that really, really well.
Yeah.
And I bet you if you found the ones that did, they were very clear and they were very narrow in their focus.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. And then lastly, number 5 in the truths that you cannot hack was relationships that matter are a daily practice. So
That one
relationships.
hurt.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of these did. And he said, really, you eventually get the relationships that you deserve. And when he said that, I was like, ooh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. That one was, I would definitely need a system around that, for me to help me, because, I go so fast and I'm a task person. So I'm checking off tasks and doing things. And so if it's on my calendar, it is a task, I'll get it done. But sometimes I'll go, gosh, how long has it been since I talked to that person? I mean, I just thought of it this morning. I thought, I really need to take my team that's here local. Ever so often, I just need to take them out to lunch. I mean, that would not take that much time, but because it's not in my schedule and I don't have the system around me to make that happen.
Yeah.
I've gone months, years without taking them to lunch. Well, I say that we do our Christmas thing,
Yeah.
but that's ridiculous, right? I mean, I talk to them all the time, but
Yeah.
just taking that extra time and, saying, hey, let's all meet at the restaurant. Those little things matter to them.
Yeah.
So I thought of that already this morning. And now that I know this, I can't pretend I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like I have to have those inside of my on my 411, which it sounds bad to say that, but if you're going to be intentional about it, that's the only way that I can be intentional about it, is to actually put like physically the names of people or conversations or whatever on there, so that I don't forget that. Actually, you guys, Michelle made a really good point in the chat that I want to say really quickly in regards to the first thing, to being there first and blocking out. And right now, getting there first with people is so important, because I just did the state of the industry repeat this week, and 80%, I remembered the sellers were 80%, but I had to pull up the buyers. 80% of sellers right now only interviewed one agent. And on the buy side, 67% of buyers only talked with one agent. So talk about getting there first and blocking out, especially right now with your clients. If you're not the first, I mean, they're probably not even talking to anybody else.
Yeah. And the best way to be first is to get someone before they actually raise their hand for the rest of the world to see.
Yeah.
So figuring out, how do I get there almost even before they really recognize they have a need, or right when they're recognizing they have a need, because by the time their hands up, they will be pounced on by everybody, right? So just trying to figure out, how do I get programs? And programs was a big thing that came up, and it's come up many times, is to have programs that people are interested in, right? It's different than trying to pick a person. They pick a program that they're interested in. So I think, especially in a shift, what I've discovered is this is you figuring out what's the market of the moment, what's the key words that people are thinking in their head, but they haven't said out loud yet. To me, those are the ways that you get there before anyone else. And it's just to learn to try to pull those people out before they start raising their hand to the rest of the world.
Yep. So true. So true. I got a barking dog in the background. His ball must be stuck or something.
I'm surprised you can hear that little thing.
Oh my gosh, she's got the loudest yap ever. Let's see. Patty asked, what do you mean by program systems? Could you give an example, maybe, Linda, of
Well,
that?
like the 72 Sold is a program. That man is in the real estate business. He's been a realtor. He's always been a realtor, but he sent a program out to the world it's like a big net, if you will. The program becomes the net, and the net draws people in. Ours used to be like a guaranteed sale, things like that. So coming up with a program that is enticing to people, that cause them to kind of raise their hand and say, wow, okay, that's interesting. I'm interested in that. And so that's what I mean by a program. And it could be, lots of different things. I mean, you could, we used to do things around foreclosures. An investment seminar would probably be more like maybe a program that people might be interested in that.
That's a great idea.
And then from that, you pull them as a net, you pull them into your sphere, and you go from there.
Yeah, love that. I really wanted to go next into the Mo Anderson. I just loved that Gary had Mo at almost every single thing. Did you notice that?
Yeah. And I think I'm just guessing here, but I'm thinking it's because what we heard from anyone who left and came back was what they missed the most is the culture.
Culture. Yeah, totally.
And when you say the word culture in Keller Williams, you can't help but think of Mo Anderson.
Yeah, I had a couple of takeaways from the interview that Gary did just one-on-one with her. And my favorite one was when she said, when God puts a dream in your DNA, it comes true despite your circumstances.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that's good. I mean, that's really, really good. And then the other thing that she said was, of all the people that committed and came to business, and those were who were really serious and stuff, a lot of it was, almost everything that drew them in was the training and actually the education and the events and all of those things. And so I just love that because I feel like sometimes, especially realtors, are busy and they say, oh, I don't have time to get into the training, or I don't have time to do this. And I love that I see some of the same people on over and over and over again, which is amazing, because that they're learning based, right? And it's like anybody that's hit it and that's been successful, that's their one thing.
Yeah, I think that we counted it up one time, and all the top producers in the company were probably in training over 100 and something days a year. And
Wow.
they're the busiest people, so you'd think they wouldn't have the time. And back to Mo's point about it's when it's in your DNA, I don't think it means it's going to happen whether you do the work or not. I think what she means by it is, or what I would assume I would take away from it is that when it's in your DNA, even if you get moments of being tired, you're so committed to it, you get back up and go at it again.
Yep.
And you do it when nothing else matters. In other words, you're not counting the money, or I like to say, I don't care if I've eaten that day. I mean, you feel that when you're in it, and not that you don't get tired and you don't have setbacks, but when you are tired or you do have setbacks, there's no way you're not getting back up and going back in the fight. There's just no way.
Yeah, I love that. Another big one that I had from Mo, well, really kind of from everything. I talked about this a little bit. I can't remember if it was on the podcast or what, but sometimes I feel like nowadays, like I talk to so many people who feel like they're 30. Oh, press is on.
Yay, Chris.
Speaking of learning based,
Hey y'all, how are you?
Hey,
even
Chris.
your regional director is learning based.
Yeah, well, and Press, you are like, I'm not sure how you're like Dana, but you are like me. I saw that spilt cup of coffee yesterday. So you're definitely like your mom.
I sent Dana an individual picture and said, I immediately thought how hard you would be laughing at me. So I spilled a whole cup of coffee on my pants yesterday. It was a great day.
It was a great day. I love it. I love it. One of the things that I took away, I feel like right now, and I've even felt this pressure a little bit before too in my life, is that you feel like in some people in their 20s and then even in your 30s, like you have already had to hit it big. Like, you know what I mean? Like you look and you're like, okay, I feel like I should already have this, or I should already have that, or I should already be doing this. And when Mo said that she was 54 when she met Gary for the first time,
she had lost everything,
and she had
gone
nothing
backwards.
Yeah, she had completely gone backwards. And then Ed Milet said he was 42, I think, or 46. I can't remember, 42 or 46. Somebody, if you remember, correct me. And when he was like at nothing, like had the duct tape around the light on his headlight on his car and was showering
on his fake car,
on his fake Mercedes. Yeah. And was showering outside at their apartment complex because they had no water. And I just thought, you know what, sometimes like we need to give ourselves a little bit of grace. That, I just feel like there's so much pressure now on like at the younger generations needing to have already achieved all this or have all this and do all this stuff. And I'm like, man, some of these people didn't hit it until they were like in their 50. It just gave me like this whole new aha around that. And I just thought, man, like that's just a good reminder.
Well, you should spend your 20s and 30s finding the right lane to be in. Right? And I think so many 20s and 30s don't even get started till their 30s. And like the defining decade says, you're behind by that point. You got to start now catching up. And the SEALs say it's better to stay up than catch up, the Navy SEALs. Yep. So I think, you should spend more time trying lots of different things so that you can find that lane that is the lane that's going to pay off the biggest for you, that is in your DNA, and that you're going to hit it and hit it hard and have the most success with.
Yeah. I love that. There were so many great things by Mo. Of course, her talking about standards really mattering. I mean, you always talk about that too. I know what she said. She said, everybody plays by the same rules. The question you should all ask yourself is, do you know what your standards really are? Standards for your speech, your dress, your communication, your customer service. Like, what are the standards for your business? And I thought I highlighted that and said, that's a really great question for us to come back and ask for all of our businesses.
Yeah. I think standards are something that are really, really hard. And especially we've kind of come through an era of, we dress a little looser. We, we want a little more flexibility on stuff. And I think all that stuff's fine, but we still have to have standards in all of it. Yeah. I think you do someone an injustice when they don't know what the standard is. Mm-hmm. I've been guilty of that before. I've told this story before, but it's the greatest thing Gary Keller could have ever done for me was when the day he asked me, did I want the job or did I want Brad to have it?
Mhm.
And because I'd probably done nothing but complain about how Brad was doing the job. And when I said, I don't know, I wanted him to do it my way. He asked me, well, what is your standard for him? And I couldn't answer the question.
Yeah.
That was huge for me because looking back now, I realized, well, number one, had I not defined that, it would have probably imploded for him and for us. And that would have been a terrible thing for him and a terrible thing for us too.
Yeah.
So that was the greatest gift I think Keller has ever given me in my coaching, is to make me realize that, not having a standard if I was going to lead people was really going to be a disservice.
Yeah.
And I think standards also kind of create your own truths. Remember, the truth, closer you are to the truth, the simpler things get. The clearer I am on my standards about anything, the simpler my life is going to get.
Yeah. Love that. Okay. What about Ryan Holiday? Did you have any thoughts or takeaways or ahas from Ryan? I wasn't sure what to expect with him, and I ended up really enjoying him a lot.
Gosh, no, he, of all the people I blanked the most on him.
He went so fast.
And I tell you the other reason why is because he really is kind of a philosopher type person, and I struggle in that area probably more than anybody. I'm definitely more logical brained, but it made me want to go back and read the book, The Stoic, or whatever I have it on
Daily
myself,
Stoic.
The Daily Stoic, and I had started reading it and I'd put it aside and quit. But I really felt like his stuff you need to take time and reflect on.
Yeah, I totally agree
on him,
Yeah, I totally agree.
I was a little hard. It was a little hard for me because I had read the reviews of whatever his last book was, and they weren't very good. Which I think if you write enough stuff, you're going to have people. I think you can even read the reviews. Just do what you want to do, and don't worry about that, because I think that would bog anybody up. So I think I kind of went in not really sure about who he was or what he was all about in the first place.
I will say he was very philosophical for sure. And sometimes that's like, whoosh, over your head. But the one thing that I really loved that I took away from him was he said that you want to be, let's see, actually, let me read it word for word. He said, your goal should be to be less emotional, but not emotionless, more like even keel. Do you remember him saying that? And I thought that was really good, because sometimes I see people that are so even keel, and I think I respect that about them, meaning like they don't let a lot of things like get them really quick into emotion, but they're also not emotionless. He said that you have to like see things as they are, but you have to get to a point where with yourself, you're centered. And so he said that it sets your day on the right way. And then you can take a clear head out into your work and life, where you can make decisions after decisions, because that's what leadership is, making decisions after decision after decision over and over and over again. But you make decisions where you're just kind of at an even keel. Like you're not really, like Gary kind of reminds me of that.
Well, I think it's people that are not into ego. I think they've moved from ego to more spiritual, more a different plane of that. Because I so respected, couldn't figure out how in the world I could probably ever do this, but I love the fact that he doesn't even start his day until he does that walk with his family. And I thought, wow, that is flipping amazing, to me. And I think it's his way of getting centered and getting, any ego out or anything. And I think, to me, when I think of calm people, they don't struggle with ego. They come from more of a spiritual place.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Yep, I totally agree with that. I just thought that was a really good reminder. And the other thing I got from him that I really thought was great too, he said, everything is a virtuous cycle of learning and experiences, like over and over and over again. You're learning and you have experiences, you're learning and you have experiences. And he said that at some point though, if you say yes to so many things, you eventually won't have the time to do the things that actually got you those opportunities to begin with. And so he said that like there are certain things that got us doors open, or they got us opportunities, or they led to another avenue. And he said that hopefully what you're continuing to do will open more and more doors. But sometimes we say yes to so many things that we forget those first things that actually got us those opportunities to begin with. And you just can't do that. And I thought that's a really great reminder too.
Yeah. And I try to pay attention to the messages that keep coming to me over and over. And that's another one where the truth is, the more you try to do, if I go back and track in my life, anything that's opened a big door for me, I was very narrow focused and I won at it really big.
Yeah.
And I didn't put so many other things on my plate that I couldn't knock that out of the park. And so I think we keep coming back to the same messages that we got to create space. Sarah, my team leader in Denton, gave me a book. I think it's called The Creative something or other. It's the one that's got the little circle with the dot in the middle. I just started it at 4:40 this morning reading it. So, but it's talking about the same thing, that if we don't leave space, creativity can't come through. And I think that's one of our biggest problems with information coming from all directions and so many options and choices. It would, if I had to say what's my number one struggle, that would be it, is how do I get more space to do the thinking and to, it's almost like, I feel like I've learned to be uncomfortable with the space, instead of craving and looking for ways to carve out the space. But I think that message keeps coming to you and I both over and over and over again.
Yeah. Adam has I haven't started it yet. I just bought it yesterday, but Adam just read a book called Buy Back Your Time. And it is actually, hold on, let me look it up and see. Yeah, it's by a guy named Dan Martell, Martell, Buy Back Your Time. And he has all of his clients reading it right now. And he was like, you have got to read this book. And it's kind of similar, but he says it's like the best one he's read in a year. Oh, Renee, you got that one too. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I just ordered it. It hasn't come in from Amazon yet, but he said a lot of it talks about that too, where like, if we aren't leaving, well, I think it does give you tactical ways to buy back your time. So it's like for anybody that's running multiple businesses, they're saying it's like the best book to read right now. But he also said that we forget that we have to have the white space or that creative time. And for people, I know press is this way and I'm very much this way, but people who have a really creative mind, like I can get burnt out when I'm not getting to use that, which is why I know a lot of you yell at me when I say I'm still doing things on Canva or things like that. And it's, I know of course someone else could do it, but it's an outlet and it gives me my creative time to be able to, to do that too. Yeah, totally agree, Press. Totally agree. Yeah.
Well, one thing this book says, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs sometimes don't see themselves as creative, and what little bit I've read of the book starting it this morning at 4:40, but is that everybody is a creative.
Yeah.
Everybody. If you think about everything in the world that was created, somebody was a creative that created it. And I think for me, I have to stop saying I'm not creative.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point.
Because I say that all the time, I'm not creative, because I think of creativity only in the music or the arts or, something like that. And that's just not true.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Maybe you guys type in the chat your gut instinct, yes or no, if you think you're creative or not. Totally curious just to see. Yeah. See, okay. No's, yeses. Yeah. Curious to see what you guys would say that if you are or not. Yeah. Okay. What about Molly Fletcher?
Oh my gosh.
Go to Molly, because I'm obsessed with her.
I want her to be mine and your BFF.
Me too. We got to get her on the podcast.
Yes, for sure. We got to figure out somebody who knows her. We're 7 people away from anybody. So you sent me a text last night and said we need to figure out how to get Dr. Amen. So while we're doing that, let's just go ahead and get Molly too at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. When you think about all the odds she's had to overcome and just the fight she had to do, you kind of really are taken back a little bit, because it's one thing to accomplish something when someone else has charted the path for you.
Yeah.
But that path had not been charted. It had not been cleared. And so she's not only having to do the job, but she's trying to take on all the roles that women take on, and at the same time clear the path that's in front of her that's not been cleared yet. So that was really what stuck out with me. I loved her tenacity. And I always say this, that sometimes tenacity is all you need. I mean, sometimes that's all you need is tenacity, just the willingness to not give up on something.
Yeah, she had it for sure. I know. I'm like, man, she'd be a great team leader.
No kidding.
She was, oh my gosh, she was great. I had a lot from her, and just like some quick ones. I love that she said use change as a strategy. And she gave the example of her home. For those of you that don't know Molly Fletcher, she's like the Jerry Maguire of today's sports world. She's represented, I don't even know how many professional athletes as their agent. It was a ton. And she just was a firecracker. But I love when she said use change as a strategy. And she talked about one of her clients who was a professional baseball player, and he was a real hometown guy.
Mhm.
And she kind of could see that he was about to get traded, and he thought they would never trade him because he was such a hometown guy. And then he got traded. And she said that as soon as he called her, she immediately said, hey, this is great. Like, let's use this as a strategy to get you doing more things and, out there more. And I thought that's so smart of her, because a lot of us hate change, or we avoid change, or we see change as negative. But if you are strategic about it, and she said, let change happen to you or make change happen for you, which one are you going to do? But if you can use change as a strategy, like, that can be a game changer.
Mhm. Yeah.
I loved that. I thought that was so good. And then I also loved when she said, she shared that Nick Saban, she interviewed Nick, and he said that his biggest piece of advice is be where your feet are.
Mm.
And he was just talking about being present, and like how hard it is nowadays to be present. And he said, recognize the power in being present and controlling what you can control versus what you can't control. We can control our mindset, our attitude, our disciplines, our values, and showing up when it's hard takes really a lot of discipline. But he said the people we lead, we can either tell when they're really there or really not. And he said, like, you can control being where your feet are, versus being present. And I was like, man, that's so good.
And she also used the fact that what would typically be a disadvantage, which was that she was a woman, she used her womanly instincts to figure out that the woman in the move is super important, and think about
Yes.
those realtors.
Yes, I forgot about that. Yes.
Yeah, so being really careful, because I notice this when people do this to me. When someone just assumes that if something got accomplished, Jimmy did it, that
Yeah.
irritates me, right? If he did it, great, he deserves the credit.
Yeah.
But he didn't go for 20 years to the region. I did. Now, don't get me wrong, he did a lot of other things so that I could go do that. But I'll have people just automatically assume he did it, so
Yeah.
that's irritating to me. So I think she picked up on some of those things that, yes, the athlete is getting moved, but the wife is important. And so
Yeah.
I thought that was genius on her part, that she could relate and actually use that to her advantage, because it happens, we're all moving away from that as much as possible, but it still happens.
Yeah, totally. Something else that she said that I just thought of, I'm trying to look back in my notes. Here's what it was. She said, if you guys want to know the biggest difference between the ones winning tournaments and the others, and she said the answer is easy. The ones holding trophies over their heads recover from adversity faster than everyone else. They recover best and faster. And she said, think about athletes use film to reset. And so she said, every one of us should have something or know something that can have us reset so that we can recover from adversity really quick, because those are the ones that win the best. And she said that she had what she calls a smile file. Do you remember that? And she said it's a folder on her computer, and she saves great emails, great notes, like anything like that. She said, I save all these things so that I can recover fast, because I have bad days too. And she said, when I need to recover, I go back and read all those things, and it helps me reset, because recovering quickly is the key to success. And I was like, man, so she said, basically go create a system that works best for you, so that when you have a bad day or adversity hits you, you can be really quick to recover. And that's huge.
Yeah, because the longer you stay in that, someone didn't choose you, or someone went a different direction, or whatever, someone wrote a bad review, whatever the case is, you're just compounding that even more, rather than, I love that. What are some of the great, that's kind of like living in the gap or the game.
Yeah.
And we all tend to do that. We live in the gap, not the gain. But the truth is that would be a way to go back and say, where have I gained ground? Where have I succeeded, or where have people been super happy with what I've accomplished? And let me focus on that, not the one person who didn't choose me or doesn't like me or whatever.
Yeah. Something else that she said, and actually I wanted to ask you about this. She also said the difference between some of the winners or the ones that you see is that energy is the key to performance. And so she challenged us to go back and make a list of what gives us energy versus what drains our energy. And then also reflecting on the people that give you energy versus the people that don't give you energy. And I was thinking about this, wonder what you do when you have to work with people, or you have people, but they aren't really the ones that give you energy. You know what I mean? Or like, you're like, man, I don't know.
Well,
What do you think about that?
this goes hand in hand with the gentleman I was talking to yesterday, the independent recruit that we're working on locally. He was talking, he's an independent broker, so he's having to do everything. Well, we all know that there's no way you're going to get fulfilled by doing everything, right?
Right.
And so my answer to him was, you have to make your opportunity bigger so that you can afford to go hire the talented people who, when they come in, that group of people gives them energy.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to do everything, and not everything is going to give you energy or whatever. It's going to drain your energy. Some things and people are going to drain your energy. And my solution is to identify those as fast as possible. Because I think sometimes we just put up with them and put up with them and put up with them till we look up and it's been a year or two and we're still putting up with the same crap, right? That we don't like doing in the first place, that drains our energy. So I think one is identify it. Number two, ask yourself, don't assume that because it drains your energy, it drains everybody's energy. Ask, who would it not drain their energy?
Yeah.
Because what I said to him was, I said, you're seeing everything through your lens. You're sitting across the table from someone who is a team leader, that all the things you're describing, she loves. It gives her energy. It fills her up. And you could see he was so in the muck. He was only focusing on, well, agents won't do this and agents won't do that. Well, will they not do it? Or are you not able to get them to do it? Because we were talking about the 201 plus. I said, you will watch so much creativity come out in our team leaders, and then they'll start learning from each other. Well, what did you do to get your agents to have 201 people in their database? And I said, the magic will start to happen. And guess what? They will have fun doing it.
Yeah.
He is not going to have fun doing it because he thinks no one's going to do it. Well, he thinks no one's going to do it because he's doing something that doesn't fill him up to do in the first place. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yep. Total sense. Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't think you just tolerate it. I think you delegate it to somebody that would be fine. Or if it's something, to do with someone's, negative stuff or whatever, then I say you do what that Clint Swindoll said, which is, you don't say, how are you? You say, tell me something good.
I forgot about, yes, I love that. That was so good.
Oh my gosh, that's one of the best things I ever learned is when you know someone's going to be a negative Nelly, anytime you say, how are you? And you think, oh God, I wish I hadn't done that. You don't do that anymore. Just say, hey, tell me something good.
And then they're like,
Yeah, that's exactly what they do. But guess what? They find something good.
That's right. Yep. Oh my gosh, I love it.
They might have to dig down to their toes, but they'll find it.
Yes. Okay. So let's end with sorry, I got a question, I think. Okay, let's end with, what were your overall takeaways from just our industry or anything else you had, but also like the feel of the market and the industry and just where we're headed as a company and stuff like that?
Well, I would say one of my big takeaways is, let's stop trying to look for some new hack and let's just go back to the basics of the database and the things that work. Find what gives you joy and what are the things that in your business that you still love doing. Don't focus on the things that you don't. And if you don't love it and it is draining your energy and you're thinking about this is not even a good industry anymore, then find somebody else to do this with, that the things that you're that way on will actually, give them energy, or maybe they'll bring momentum and stuff for you. But I think we got to stop looking for new things. It's the basics. And
Yeah.
how can I go back and make the basics fun or get the basics done by somebody?
Yeah.
And because I've been in this business 40 years and let's see, almost 40 years, 30 something. And nothing's new. I mean, there's new ways to do it and that's kind of fun. But the truth is it's the basics. It's work your database, feed it every day, follow through. Jim and I have been noticing in Whitefish, Montana, where we're trying to do things for our new house there, how terrible people's follow through is. And I'm like, you know what? Success is not that hard. Just follow through and follow up. Even if you're sitting there thinking, oh, well, I don't want to bug them. Call them anyway, because I know my furniture guy thinks like that, which just drives me nuts when I want to buy something and somebody wants to be a sheepish salesperson and not sell me anything.
Yeah.
So guess what? I walked into him the other day and I said, I got some good news and bad news. Which do you want first? And he said, well, give me the bad news. I said, bad news is I bought all of my furniture in a different place. You could just see his face. I said, but here's the good news. I need some more things today. He hopped faster. He's called me 3 times. I mean, he is on it. But you know what? And I put on my sheet. They said, what could we do better? I said, follow up better.
Follow up. Yeah.
I was trying to buy something, but I'm busy. I'm back in Texas. I need somebody to push me a little bit on some of those things.
Yeah.
So I think to me, it was just go back to the basics. We've got the momentum on our side. Now is our time. Go get market share, because if you just do the basics that we're teaching in everything, you can't help but win. And and when you win in this market, in this condition, you will always win.
Yeah, totally agree. I was thinking, I think my 2 biggest things too, and it kind of, one of them, I have a funny story, kind of goes with your story, but one of them was the fact that Gary started by just saying, like, this is going to be a hard year and you're just going to have to work twice as hard. Yeah. And it hit me because I've just had a couple of issues lately with some real estate agents, unfortunately, who I don't think are going to work twice as hard. They're just not going to do it, or they're not working hard at all to begin with. But that's when people say the market share that you lose in a shift, you never get back. And the market share that you gain in a shift, you keep forever. Yeah. And I mean, like, Adam and I had been saying by 2025, we want to have a house or a condo in Florida, in South Florida. And I had this one little spot. We've looked at several different places, but I had this one little spot I'd been to years ago. Anyway, long story short, they got hit by the hurricane. And so I said, I know that there's going to be some opportunity come up there, because unfortunately this is so terrible. But I was talking to the property manager on this island, and so many of those people had lived in those houses for years and they didn't even have insurance. So, I mean, they're just trying to sell their lot or what's left of their house for whatever that they can get. So I found one pop up, and ironically, Adam just bought a new truck and it's in South Florida. And so we're having to fly there tomorrow, and then we're going to drive it back on Saturday. Well, a condo popped up in this place that we'd been wanting to look at. And I called that agent for 3 days and still never got a call back. I'm like, are you kidding me? Call, text, no response whatsoever. Finally talked to them. And it was like, I was like talking to somebody on another planet. I'm like, this has to be a joke. Like, you've got to be kidding me right now, right? And I mean, and so we're actually still trying to see it on Saturday. And he's still not sure if we can get in, if we can't get in, what the condition. I mean, I'm just like, it is mind blowing. And, I told Adam, I said, this is what we talk about when we say there's going to be so much opportunity. And for those of us that want to double down and work in a market like this, because what a disservice to the people who own this, by the way.
Success is not complicated.
It's not. No. And so my second aha was, just because there's less opportunity, because remember, I keep saying these numbers, and I'm hoping everybody's writing these numbers down, or them, but in 2021, 6.1 million homes were sold. Okay. 6.1. In 2022, we sold 5 million. In the country, not Keller Williams, but in the country, there were 5 million sold. And this year they're projecting between 4.2 and 4.3 million. So there is going to be a less opportunity, but my aha was, just because there's less opportunity does not mean that your opportunity is less. I love that. Just keep saying that over and over and over again, because there's going to be people that are not going to make it, during this shifting market, because they don't want to double down, or they don't call people back for 3 days who are very interested with cash to buy something. I'm like, this is nuts. So we just have to remember that and go say, okay, just because there's less opportunity doesn't mean my opportunity is less, and really double down and work. And as a leader, for those of you that are leaders on the call too, like that's what we need to make sure that we're delivering the message to, because just because there's going to be, potentially 2 million homes less sold doesn't mean that there's still not going to be 4 million homes sold out there. And if 350 agents leave NAR in the next 12 to 18 months, there's still a huge opportunity.
Yeah. And the real point is you're going to decide. You're going to decide by your actions whether you have a bigger opportunity or you have a lesser opportunity. You're actually going to make that decision. And sometimes it's just by default, by not deciding that you're not going to let that happen. But I don't think success is simple. It's just it's not complicated. It's simple, but it's also takes you being disciplined in skills. One of the first things I used to have agents do when I would coach them is I would say, okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to check your system. You're going to figure out what are the ways that you can see if a call comes into you or a call comes in on your listing, what happens to it. Yeah. Because 9 times out of 10, it would go to their cell phone, and guess what? They're on appointments and everything else. And I'm like, okay, how much business are we losing right here just with the system not working? Right. So it would be one of the first places we always check. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So last thing really quick is you and I were talking, or you actually said this, and I just want to touch on this really fast, that this would, if never now before, this would be the time that you would not bet against Gary.
Oh, never. No.
Touch on why you feel that way, and then I'll share why.
Because honestly, he is very strategic. He is, he may look like he's losing, and he never is, because he's laying awake at night worrying about how do we continue to win.
Yep.
And he's willing to put the money and the talent behind any idea, and he's willing to fail fast, own that failure, and get right back up and get going again. And I know where his heart is. And I've followed lots of leaders that had lots of dead bodies around them. And and I followed Gary. And if you did the job you were supposed to do, your life got tremendously better. And I think there's certain principles about the way he does business that are truths that you just don't ever bet against. Whether you bet against him or not, you don't bet against these truths.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I felt so much that way when he opened up, and I shared this, I think on the maybe I can't remember which one it was, but I've been on so many calls this week and I can't remember, but when he opened up the summit by saying, hey guys, I just want you to know that I think about you every single day.
Yeah.
And he really does. And I mean, I really truly believe that. And I think that's what great leaders do. But my aha around that was, even though I think about my people every single day too, are we telling them that, and just really being able to, like, that really resonated with me. And I really left thinking, not only, number one, it was the best. I've been to 9 family reunions. It was the best one I've ever been to. And also the second thing was, I mean, Gary's going to figure it out. Yeah. I mean, he's going to figure it out. And like you said, he really does care, and he has the heart. And it was just, it's really, to me, like, exciting to see where we're going because of all of that. And he's so quick to, like, want to pivot and change when something's not going right.
Yeah. And talking to the gentleman yesterday, one of the things I felt was his drag, that he's trying to do everything himself. And I said, I feel bad for you, because we have a whole army. We have a whole lot of money and people and talent behind us every day. I can't imagine going out there tomorrow and trying to pull this wagon by myself,
No way.
And Larry Kendall said years and years ago, don't lay awake at night and worry about people that aren't laying awake at night worrying about you.
Yeah.
And that's what I think about with Gary. I know he's laying awake. And by the way, I feel an obligation to lay awake at night and worry about him.
Yeah. For the same reason. Yeah. I love that. Perfect. Well, what a great note to end on. Linda, thanks for your time.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Always love it.
Go win big. Love you all.
Thanks for being on, guys. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day. See you later.